You voted, we gathered the results, and we now have the final four for this year's credit card bracket challenge. So in this video, RJ and myself are going to break down the results for the Elite 8 and the cashback and travel regions, and we're going to see all together who's in and who's out. After we give our breakdowns on the results, I'm going to give my thoughts on the results from the travel region and preview what's to come in the final four. Also, we've entered a really exciting time. You might be noticing, I don't know if you can see it, but it's my Gonzaga sweatshirt that I got on today. So not only are we getting deeper into the credit card bracket challenge, but we're also entering March Madness, which again is what this tournament is based off of. So if you don't know about what that is, that's basically the college basketball tournament where there's 64 teams that basically play out until there's one winner. And that is now going on right now. So we're kind of intersecting the two between the credit card bracket challenge and then the college basketball tournament as well. Okay, so before I break down what the results looked like from the travel region, let's first hear from RJ, who's going to break down the Elite 8 in the cashback region.
Hey Internet's RJ. Thanks for having me back. I am the commissioner of the Credit Card Madness Tournament, of course the host of the cashback region, here to break down the Elite 8 and set up the Final Four as we get ever closer to crowning a champion. So, the cashback land, we had two matchups to take a look at, and let's get right into it to see how you guys voted. So, in the first matchup, we have the dominant 1 seed, City Custom Cash, taking on the number 5 seed, Chase Amazon Prime Card. City's dominance continues with 69.2% of the votes, moving it along to the Final Four and to the cashback conference final, I guess we would call it. Now, the next round here, matchup number 2. We see the number 2 Chase Freedom Flex taking on the number 3 Capital One Saver One Rewards. And in a shocking turn of events to some, but not all, the Capital One card moves on with 53.2% of the vote. And just like that, that is how our half of the Elite 8 folded out on the cashback side, which means, again, we're moving to what I guess we will call the conference championships next round before we get to the absolute finals. And we have one matchup, and of course, as you may have guessed, here it is for you. The number 1 seed, City Custom Cash, is taking on the number 3 seed, Capital One Saver One Rewards. That is your Final Four matchup for the cashback region. Again, thank you guys for having me. If you want to follow along all my in-depth analysis on the cashback region, as well as all the news you can use in the week that was in credit and finance, well, again, check me out at youtube.com/RJ Financial, of course. Thank you for having me, Matt, and to you guys over here on this part of the internet. Hope to see you again right back here next week very soon to set up the absolute championship and see who's taking home the crown, cashback or travel.
Okay, now if we take a look at the Elite 8 in the two matchups on the travel side, the first matchup had the defending champ number 1 seed Capital One Venture X squaring off against the number 4 seed American Express Gold Card. The Venture X ended up running away with this matchup, and it wasn't really ever close, with the Capital One Venture X getting over 64% of the vote. In the other matchup, we had Big Brother versus Little Brother, with the number 2 seed Chase Sapphire Preferred taking on the number 6 seed Chase Sapphire Reserve. And this matchup was closer, but the 2 seed Chase Sapphire Preferred did end up winning with a little bit of comfort too, as it got over 55% of the vote. This sets up the final matchup on the travel side of the bracket for the Final Four, with the number 1 seed Capital One Venture X still on a quest to defend its title against the number 2 seed, which is making a lot of noise, the Chase Sapphire Preferred. But before I give my predictions for that upcoming Final Four matchup, let me first discuss the results from the Elite 8. Alright, so if we go back to the first matchup, we have the defending champ number 1 seed Capital One Venture X taking on the number 4 seed American Express Gold Card. The Venture X wiped the floor with the Amex Gold Card, and this matchup was really never that close, so it was definitely what I was expecting. Even though it is what I was expecting, especially with this matchup, it is interesting to see the Capital One Venture X just continue to dominate the tournament, because the Venture X very handily won its first round matchup in the Sweet 16 against the US Bank Altitude Reserve, and then it basically just repeated the exact same result and crushed the Amex Gold Card in the Elite 8. Obviously, the Capital One Venture X is a great card, and it's one of the simplest high-tier travel cards to get consistent value from, since of course you're going to get that $300 annual travel credit and the 10,000 bonus miles every year. But despite that, there have been some growing negatives with the Venture X and with Capital One in general, with the removal of specific benefits and also just growing fears that there's going to be a devaluation of the Venture X in the future. So at least to me, it seemed like the consumer sentiment on the Venture X was growing more negative, at least since like last year when the Venture X won the championship. But obviously, based on the results of the tournament so far, that hasn't really impacted anything, with the Venture X just completely dominating. and obviously the specific matchups that the Venture X has had could play a factor in that as well. In the other matchup, we had the number 2 seed Chase Sapphire Preferred taking on the number 6 seed Chase Sapphire Reserve. This was basically a big brother versus little brother matchup, and I was really interested to see whether the audience valued a cheaper, more affordable travel card in the Sapphire Preferred that doesn't really have anything that special about it, but does give you access to Chase's travel partners, or a higher tier travel card like the Chase Sapphire Reserve that does give you other benefits that the Sapphire Preferred does not, including that higher redemption value when you book travel through the Chase Travel Portal. Ultimately, the little brother Chase Sapphire Preferred did end up pulling through in what was a closer matchup than the Venture X matchup, but the Chase Sapphire Preferred still did win with a little bit of comfort, getting over 55% of the vote. I've been saying this, but I definitely think that familiarity plays a factor in these matchups throughout the tournament, because in order to advance throughout the tournament, you need to win the hearts of the general audience, and the Sapphire Preferred is definitely one of the most recognizable travel cards that is out there. Okay, but now we have set the stage for the Final Four, and the final matchup on the travel side, which is going to be the number 1 seed Capital One Venture Rex taking on the number 2 seed Chase Sapphire Preferred. Unlike the college basketball March Madness tournament, where we typically see a bunch of upsets, the only real upset that has actually happened so far on the travel side was when the number 6 seed Chase Sapphire Reserve beat the number 3 seed American Express Platinum, but then of course the Sapphire Reserve fell to the Sapphire Preferred in the next round. And so ultimately we do have a pretty chalky matchup that is taking place with the number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed in the Final Four matchup. Since this is the final matchup on the travel side before we get into the championship, I'm actually not going to give any of my predictions for this matchup because I don't want to influence anything. I just want to let it play out how it's naturally going to. But it is going to be really interesting to see if the Capital One Venture Rex gets back to the championship to try to defend its title, or if Chase makes a splash and gets the Chase Sapphire Preferred into the championship instead. In terms of what happens next week we're going to break down the Final Four, and I'll go in depth to break down the final matchup in the travel region, and then we will crown the champion of the travel side and the champion of the cashback side and set the stage for the championship. But it's been a ton of fun so far. Thank you all so much for participating, and happy voting on this next matchup. I'll see you next week, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Peace.